listening to Revolution Rampage. I'm Omar.
Amanda.
And today with us is former Carolina Hurricane and star of your Fox Sports broadcasts, the one, the only Shane Willis. How are you doing today?
I am doing excellent. How are y'all doing?
You're doing wonderful. Exile or quarantine, as some would like to call it, in our homes.
Exile.
Yeah, quarantine 365.
Yeah.
It's been driving some people mad. Everyone's got to figure out a way to kind of where they fit in their routine and try to at least get some sort of semblance of normal. How does that look for you, Shane?
I think that's the most difficult part for anybody who doesn't already work from home is like you said, finding a schedule that works and keeps you energized throughout the day. I found through the first week and a half, I got a little lazy and wasn't doing any workouts or really physical activity at all, maybe a little bit of yard work, but I found I was, sluggish for most of the day. So this last just over a week, I finally got back into it, doing some bike rides here at home, a little bit of weightlifting, getting outside for little jogs. And I felt starting my day like that kind of re-energized it, was able to get in, get logged into the computer and get some work done, stay connected, with the youth hockey community, trying to help guide and manage things that are going on right now in the youth hockey community, from tryouts getting pushed back, and already looking forward to the fall season of what can we do, what could happen, trying to manage those events. And I think it's been a lot more effective that way. I've definitely got a few more home projects on the list that I got to get done before my wife starts yelling at me, but I think we got plenty of time to get those done, as I always say.
You gotta think of what Rod Brindamore is thinking about when you're not working out. He's in there. In your head, just gotta, yeah. You can't let Rod find out that you're not working out.
Yeah, you can't come back looking, a little bit overweight. Maybe like, what were you doing the whole time? You go over a little over a week without shaving, and you're like walking to the bathroom and like, look at yourself, you slob.
I mean, give it 2 more weeks, and you're like, well, I'm growing a beard.
Yeah. I mean, Emil Hartman, my great coordinator, ended up staying here for a little while when it first started. He moved back out, and I saw him today, and he's grown into a full mustache, and I'm like, what is going on with the duster that you got growing on your face right now? Like, this is an extreme right now.
Some lip lettuce, hell yeah.
Ouch. Yeah, so with the youth, so we skipped fall, this past fall league. She was just kind of getting burned out. And she was so looking forward to spring, and we got to the week before evaluations for spring league, and they were like, no, you're going to have to wait. She was crushed.
Yeah, it was difficult. We had a few skates going on. I know my son was skating, and, spring camps were getting ready to start with the junior Hurricanes, and AAA tryouts were actually going to be this coming weekend, and everything just getting canceled. And now, we've done a really good job socially with the junior Hurricanes, putting out information, just online workouts kids can do, encouraging them to try and keep active, have some fun in their driveways.
Yeah.
Working on their shooting, their passing, their stick handling, and then also getting in some exercise and things that you can find on usahockey.com for whatever age your child might be. And I think we've been trying to push that out to all our athletes.
So what would you tell any kids listening to the podcast right now who are tuning in to listen to you, Shane? What would you tell them to do while they're stuck at home, kind of bugging the hell out of their parents, and they're looking for some way to exert activity in the hockey sense?
Well, I think number one, what a lot of parents would like to hear is to do a little bit of schoolwork. I know this is an easy time for kids to say, oh, we don't have to go back to school, I'll do it later. And I think that not only applies to school, but also to your hockey skills. I think whenever you take something and the words that come out of your mouth are, I'll do it later, we all know it doesn't get done. And I think getting into routine of, this is where you can really change your game. I know you're not skating, and that may not be a part that you can work on right now, maybe a little bit with your rollerblades if you have them. But I think this is an area where kids don't do enough work off the ice, getting their bodies physically ready. I think it's so important. Kids at any age right now can do body weight exercises, body weight lunges, body weight squats. You can draw a speed ladder on the driveway with driveway chalk. And I think working on those quick feet drills, your balance, your agility, and then just mixing in a little bit of core work can help any young athlete at any age continue to improve. And I think every player right now, as we sit and wait, as we go through the spring and then the summer, guys are already training for next fall. So my encouragement to young players is, how much better do you want to get? Because right now you have an entire window to get better. You can do schoolwork for half your day, and you have a good couple hours to go outside and really work on your training to become that next kind of elite hockey player in this area.
Wow, I'm sitting here taking notes right now.
So
And
what's
my
You can
other
do
my
this.
other thing I always tell parents is that I am amazed how many great things you can find on YouTube. Yes, there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
goofy stuff. Yes, there's a lot of stuff that, but you type in off ice youth hockey drills and hundreds of videos come up that you can show your son or daughter to go out, like I said, drawing things on the driveway with sideway chalk, having them race from the middle. You have 4 spots, color each spot a different color. Now it's quick feet agility. As you call out a color, not only do they have to get there quickly, but in their mind, the first thing they have to do is figure out, which direction am I going? And I was on a great conversation the other day using Zoom calls, as everyone's using the Zoom now. Um, the Pittsburgh Penguins skill coach was on there, and that's what he talked about when training young athletes. Number one, he only wanted 2 things out of training. One was to have them compete, and two was to have their mind always thinking of what's coming next. So in competition, we don't have a maybe you don't have a brother or sister to compete with in this drill, but get out your phone. There's a stop and competing against themselves. But as you call out a color, in their mind, it's kicking in, going, "Where's green? Where's green?" And they know they got to go right. Where's yellow? Where's orange? Where's red? And I think those are things that parents can help, and then get involved too. We know as parents how much we're sitting in the house. Go out there and have a little bit of fun with your son or daughter in the driveway.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
everyone
So,
needs exercise, even the parents,
oh
especially the parents sometimes.
yeah. Well, speaking of the youth league, believe it or not, it's been 3 years since we did the first goal program. Her interest in hockey exploded. Can you talk about the first goal program?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been, a highlight in my job over these past few years. And I know across the league, the National Hockey League, the National Hockey League Players Association doing such a great job in building a fund where they can assist every team in getting equipment, helping fund these programs to get kids on the ice. And these past 3 years have been great, showing the growth here in Raleigh. We started our first year getting 250 kids playing, and we're like, wow, that's great. Let's try and get this a little bit higher. And then you go to 600, and then last year we hit 894 brand new players in Raleigh, in
Wow.
Greensboro, in Charlotte. We reached out to Wilmington and got 50 brand new hockey players there off and running. And I think just having that program where a parent can look at it and say, man, hockey might be just too much or too expensive to get involved in. And we kind of knock that barrier down where you get full head to toe equipment you keep, you get 7 on ice sessions, you get 2 tickets to a Hurricanes game, you become a member of the Hurricanes Kids Club, all for $150. And parents email me all the time. They're like, "You sure we get all of this stuff?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
I said, "We just want
Yeah.
them to step on the ice." And then you've seen it from
I
week one
I can
where
confirm.
everyone's falling down to week two.
Hmm.
Now we're all shuffling around to week 4, 5, and 6, that parents are glued against the glass in amazement that their son and daughter is skating around, smiling, laughing, coming off in a full sweat, going, "Can we come back tomorrow?" And I think that's the
Right.
best part of it. When we stand there and kids come off and they're hugging us with smiles and they're all sweated up, going, "Can we skate again later? Can we come tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll have to see you guys next week." And I think that's, one of the biggest parts of my job and most fulfilling parts is seeing those kids. And again, it's been a great piece of what the Carolina Hurricanes and the league has done here, and we're looking forward to continuing to launch this. We still have it scheduled to open registrations May. Anyone who hasn't done the program at 9 a.m. We're hoping, because the program doesn't start on the ice until mid-July, that we're okay with all that. But we want to get registrations done so we can potentially line up that equipment fitting and make sure all these kids get everything on time. So anyone who's interested, May 1st at 9 a.m., go on to canesyouthhockey.com and you can find the first goal link there.
Yeah, and make sure you're there at 9 a.m. because it fills up fast.
Especially if you want to go to Cary.
Right. Yeah.
So there's multiple locations.
Yes, we do every location in Raleigh. We do Hillsboro, we do Greensboro, we do Fort Bragg, Wilmington, and Charlotte in September and October.
Wow.
So we do
That's
900 total kids. We usually do about 100 kids at each one of the rinks.
wow. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of local kids, North Carolina kids, getting on the ice for the first time and learning to skate. And from those, say, 1,000 that you're training, how many do you think are eventually going to move up the ranks, Pee Wee, and all those little levels of hockey?
Well, I'd like to say 900, but I don't know if I'm that good of a coach. I think it could be a wide range from year to year, and I think we see that now in the house league and in the junior hurricanes, where you have, every team now is aged according to birth years, and you may have one birth year that you're like, this birth year is maybe not as talented as the year before, and the year next year is even better than these kids. But what we're seeing now at really the younger ages, not only in the house league, but the 9 and 10-year-olds that are coming into the junior hurricanes, is their skill level is continuing to climb. And I think the first goal program and getting kids on the ice at 5, 6, and 7 really helps them the most, because most of the kids that I've seen when I first started this job, when they started hockey, they were already 8, 9, 10, maybe 11 when they're like, the Hurricanes are here, let's play hockey. And now the Hurricanes have been here this long, and now kids are getting accustomed to this game so much earlier. I think that only helps build, and we'll continue to see numbers. Now, I'll tell you, Omar, in the back of my mind, the story I think around the National Hockey League that I think of when I think about Raleigh is Dawson Matthews, coming from Phoenix, Arizona, growing up in a real small rink, skating on a pond, learning hockey through the ADM model, which we use here. I think there hopefully could be a young Carolina Hurricanes player come up through the ranks and get drafted in the first round.
And I think you'll be really proud when that happens, and I think it's going to happen a little sooner than you think. In fact, there already has been a Raleigh resident, or a kid from Raleigh, who is now in the NHL, who's played for Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the one I know that spent some time here and played a little bit here, but not a lot of time, was Corey Stillman's son. He played in Florida for quite a few games this season before the season got postponed. So he'd be the most relevant one that I know. I'm trying to think of who you're talking about. You may be thinking of, is it Kevin Brown's son?
Yes, Logan Brown.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So Kevin Brown, actually, I played a few games with him very early in minor league. He was here for a quick time, and his son was born here. Again, not a situation where he grew up playing through our system, but he was born in Raleigh. Yes.
Right, and he's played.
And obviously,
Shane, I think.
Go ahead,
Oh, I said obviously. So he's played about 25 games for the Senators in the NHL. He's got his own. He's got his first goal. He's got 7 assists along with that. Not a great rookie season so far. Since he's played 25, I think that counts as his rookie season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm not sure now on the league rules where they deem that, but yeah, he was born in Raleigh. Again, didn't grow up playing a lot of hockey here. I'm sure he started skating here before they moved back north. It's always good to have someone with their hometown name on there as Raleigh, North Carolina. And then, of course, we're all waiting for, we talked about him a little bit earlier with Rod Brindamore, how he's probably going a little bit crazy sitting at home. But his son Skyler having a good year this year at Quinnipiac in college.
He's crushing it over there.
A few weeks ago on Twitter, I think they nominated him for Goal of the Year, a little spinorama backhand after coming down the wing. So the Edmonton Oilers probably have high hopes for Skyler Brindamore one day playing in their lineup as well.
I've watched that goal, Shane. It's an incredible goal. Now, we've been talking hockey, not just Carolina Hurricanes, but hockey all across the state. So we've covered, Fayetteville Marksmen, the Checkers, the Thunderbirds. We've been talking a little bit about AAA or ACHL Swamp Rabbits. All these teams have really done really well recently. Most of them have gone to the playoffs. The Thunderbirds have just steamrolled their opposition. The Marksmen, under new leadership, under new ownership, have really created a new community in Fayetteville. Of course, the Checkers with the Calder Cup win. How is all of that really attributing to a rise in hockey, youth hockey, in the state of North Carolina?
Well, I think it definitely helps the spotlight get bigger. All those teams you mentioned playing in smaller markets, in smaller cities than Raleigh. But you got to think about all the families that are in Fayetteville, in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, in Charlotte, that don't get the opportunity to come to a Carolina Hurricanes game to see the National Hockey League, so they don't get exposed to it. But when you're still getting exposed to professional hockey, you can still fall in love with it and find that interest. And I give a lot of credit to all the organizations I work with. Um, there's no way I can get to every single one of these rinks and be hands on. And I can tell you what, the volunteers around North Carolina that not only help produce this game, but help teach these kids at a young age, they're a huge part of it as well. But I think all of these professional organizations, you just mentioned how well they're doing now. I think they've watched kind of what was built here in Carolina and how things were built, and they put their business model in place to do the same things. They went out there, recruited well, they scouted well, they found the players they want, and they built a winning team. And I think whenever you do that, more people are coming in and more fans are coming in, more exposure to the game, and growth continues.
What do you have to say about this theory of the lost generation in North Carolina of fans, where during that 9 year gap of missing the playoffs, the Carolina Hurricanes kind of lost a generation of fans growing up in that era as attendance dropped?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they were lost. I think they were always there. I think people were frustrated, and so was the organization, so were the players. And I think we saw last year when we talk about a lost generation. I can tell you some of those people in that generation were back in that building last year, and it takes a winning team. And I think when you look around the league, the teams that have success, the teams that are buildings that are filled night in and night out, like for example the Pittsburgh Penguins, they win and they build their teams to win. They make moves to get players in that can help them do that. And the Hurricanes now have built that, and it takes time. It takes time when you go the route of building with youth and building through the draft. You can't do it in one, you can't do it in 2 years. And I think the Hurricanes remain very patient with their young players and the way they developed and a few of the moves they make. Um, there's never be a move. I don't think that there's some that are great and some that don't work out, and that's just the name of the game. But I don't think we lost that generation fully. I think a lot of them are now back. I think they were all just sitting there waiting for what everybody wanted, and that's a winning team. And I think Mr. Dundon has come in, and Don Waddell has done an outstanding job working together with our scouts, with our coaching staff, to number one, build the culture. And it's a winning culture. And we all know Rod Brindamore and what he demands and what he wants from his players. And he wants to win. And that culture now has been built. And I think everyone can see that. And I think that generation now is starting to come back. You have the new fans that are coming back. And I think it's just going to continue to grow when everything gets back on track.
We've seen some um, female players from this area go pro, and I personally was super super excited when you guys brought Alyssa on. And how have you seen that the female players have grown since then, or just recently?
Yeah, I think the first goal program has been huge. That has actually been the largest numbers we've seen in growth and retention has been with the young girls. Uh, I think we've had a lot of great volunteer parents in the Junior Hurricanes organization who have put in time over the years. And I remember when I first came on um, years ago, and the dads that were just putting in the time and grinding it out, trying to find girls to make teams, and the sacrifices they made to really help get the girls game to where it is now and what you see it. And as you mentioned, bringing on Alyssa Gagliardi, was a huge asset this year, and we pushed very hard for that, and the team was very welcoming to having her join our staff. And I think Alyssa's already done a great job with a few events she's done, and we're just looking forward to more great things and continuing to grow the girls' game and really help not only the girls' game here in Raleigh, but I think having an impact on the women's game across the country as well.
Yeah. Don't you do something in Canada with the girls' teams?
Do I?
Yes.
Well, I think the biggest thing we've reached out and we've touched base with some of the female teams. We just haven't had anything concrete come together yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was thinking you did something in Canada with some girls' leagues, but we'll move on.
No, not me. I
Okay.
wish.
Maybe one
We'll
day.
edit that out. We
Nah,
can
nah.
edit that.
I think one day. I think this is
One day,
plans
it's
for the
just a
future.
small
Yeah.
stepping stone. We'll conquer the world, really. What we're
Right.
looking for. But we're
How
gonna
do you,
start in North Carolina and grow.
how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
There
That's
you
right.
go. There you go.
And the youth hockey is just a small part of how you instruct hockey because in your broadcasts with Fox Sports, you and Trip Tracy actually have little segments where you talk plays and you break it out on the ice. You guys actually get put on gear, you go out on the ice, and how do you find a balance between instructing us with something new while also keeping it basic enough for us to understand and at the same time keeping it where you're not talking down, you're not telling us what we already know. You guys strike a very delicate balance and you do it very well.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Actually, big congratulations to our podcast team who are ranked number one by the Athletic in the National
Yes.
Hockey League just
Well
this week.
earned.
So
Great.
big was led by Johnny Forsland and Trip Tracy upstairs. Mike Maniscalco, who is the anchor at the desk while I kind of throw my stuff in there. And then, of course, our great crew outside in the truck. I mean, I didn't realize until I got into it how much behind the scenes work there is that our managers and directors do outside that make this show look so good each and every night and makes it easier for us just to go out there and talk. But back to your main question, Trip and I have always had great chemistry from when we both started in the Hurricanes organization. So I think that helps keep it light. But I think he knows, and I know from growing up and being involved with youth hockey in different ways and how coaches have taught us and making sure that, as you said, we're not talking down to fans. You guys know the game. How do we break it down to show you those small little things that you may not notice in a game? So keeping it simple, but even something where a player is putting his stick, where he's looking to shoot, things like that. Just opening up some of the simple things that you don't even think about when you're watching the game, going, "Wow, I wonder how he did that." When what we're trying to do is that part actually wasn't that hard. Here's the hard part of what he was trying to do. Besides what Andrei Svechnikov is doing behind the net, I can't do that. We can talk about that all day long, but I can't even do that. But just trying to break down really what the coaches are trying to get their players to do, and then how the players are responding. I think it's been great doing some of those segments this year. We're hoping to do a few more, before the playoffs, and then, continue to build on it year after year. I think that's the other big part of Fox is what they push us to do is what more can we bring to the table? What more can we bring to the show to make sure it is number one and that our fans are tuned in each and every night if they can't be at PNC Arena?
Yeah, I mean, you guys break down all these plays in such a intricate way, and you guys do a really great job. Even stuff that maybe you guys can't physically do, like Sveshnikov's lacrosse goal, you still try to break it down. Trip, of course, has his colorful way of doing it. You balance it out with the more technical, and it really works out.
Yeah, and I think that's the best part about when we get rolling together. We have fun, and then we know we're going to get our jabs in there here or there, and uh, I get going. I try and stay as light as possible because I know Trip's going to get that technical parts in there. He's a student of the game, and when he's in it, he's been doing a lot longer than I have. So I think he knows the intricacies that coaches are looking at. He's always in the room talking to coaches, where I don't always get the time to go down to the room. As a balancing act, as you mentioned, going from youth hockey down to games and things like that. But I think that's the biggest part when I go out and look at it is make sure I'm trying to get the point across, explaining what's going on, but also keeping it light and having fun. I mean, Mike and I have such a good time at the desk, just laughing and joking. I wish they kept the camera rolling the whole time because him and I are dying in between in commercials trying to get back on track. He's okay, serious, get back in serious mode. I'm like, okay.
I mean, I think I've sat in behind, not sat, but stood behind you guys a couple of times here and there between games, between periods or before the game. You guys really do an excellent job at talking the game, and you guys always have guests. You guys always bring in guests, and how do you prepare them for what you guys bring? And you always manage to figure out a way to put them in the spotlight without putting too much pressure. So talk us through how that works.
Yeah, usually when we're having a guest on, I think that's when Mike and I get a little bit more nervous because unless it's someone like a scout, like a Robert Cron or a player that we know has been on camera before and has answered these type of questions. But when you're getting someone, maybe one of our nights where we're saluting an organization or a cause or something like that, we've never met this person before. So I think Mike and I get a little bit more nervous because you don't know how they're going to react on camera. We try and keep it light again as they come up and we meet them, and we're like, this isn't going to be very long, a couple minutes, it goes by real fast. And we try and keep our questions simple, making sure they're able to talk to us about their organization. Number two, how can people get involved and help? And then number three, try and spotlight some with that program to tell everyone how great it is. And it's really simple. It's 3-4 questions max before we're done. And again, just keeping those questions simple, really trying to just tee them up so they can walk into it. Because most of them are preparing that they come in, they're like, all I want to do is tell you about the organization, say this, and be done. And so we kind of know that going in. So that's how we kind of groom our questions to make sure it goes smoothly.
You guys do an amazing job night in and night out in the Fox Sports broadcast. It's something that people don't realize how much it values to them until it's not there. Say an NBC night without John, or during the playoffs, and it really makes a difference when we can get excellent little tidbits and information about our Carolina Hurricanes compared to some broadcasts, which may or may not be biased or skewed towards the other team. That's not for me to say.
Yeah, I think that's it's fun for us. Last year, as the Canes made their run, I was able to travel the team into the end of the season, and then through that first round in the playoffs. And I mean, just as a crew to be able to be there and be focused as each and every one of the guys were on the ice, and we know that's our job. How do we bring that excitement? The Hurricanes fans aren't in Washington for Game 7, but they're all at home in front of their televisions, and we have to remember that's what our job is. How do we bring excitement to the game to our fans who are sitting at home watching that television? Because it's not going to be, if Washington's winning, how do we keep it exciting, making sure we're pushing the envelope to keep everyone engaged so they don't pick up that controller on commercial and say, this one's over. But they're wanting to come back to hear what we're talking about and leave those pieces in. And I think last year was a great example of how great our crew is in the first round of playoffs against Washington. And then obviously getting John to do a little bit on NBC as they take over the rest of the playoffs. But I think doing those post-game shows that we did with Lindsay Rowley, who came in and joined us from the Nashville Predators, I think was another added piece that kind of shows, how dedicated really Fox Sports is to the Carolina Hurricanes and what we're trying to broadcast.
John is a legendary broadcaster. He's incredible at what he does, and to work with him has to be an absolute treat. We interviewed him about a month ago, like literally a couple of days into his quarantine after the Gobert hotel. I don't want to say incident, but no safety precaution taken. Yeah. And he always manages to find a way to be excited about what he's talking about, regardless of what it is. And he's really a pro's pro. How is it working with a man like that?
Well, number one, when you first meet John, it's exactly what you just said. His excitement and love for the game is beyond anything you can imagine. He eats, breathes, and sleeps hockey. The other part that you'll notice when you work with him is how prepared he is. It amazes me when John does a Carolina Hurricanes game and how enthusiastic he is, and as he calls the game on, say, a Tuesday night, and then Wednesday night he's in New York for the Rangers Flyers and is doing the same thing with 40 other guys that he does not watch every single night. And that goes back to his preparation, the notes that he has, the books that he has, the stats that he keeps that helps him, do this stuff is just amazing to me. And I think that's what makes our job so much easier because he is the best. Everyone talks about, who's going to NBC, who's going to do this. And to me, John Forsland is the best broadcaster in the National Hockey League, hands down. There's other guys that are good, but they don't do what John does. And I think that's the biggest thing, how much he loves the game, and he's a student of the game, and then how prepared he is makes our job, makes Tripp's job so much easier because we know no matter what we say, John's got it. You could ask him anything, and he would carry it off like it was the best question he's ever heard in his life. Now, he's never going to tell you it was a horrible question after because he makes it sound so good, and you just feel good about yourself. But that's how good John Forsland is at what he does.
Absolutely. And I think from what you're telling me is he needs to be put into the next video game. The next NHL 21, it has to be John Forsland in broadcasting. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
100% agree with
Who
that.
does it now?
It
Is it
used
still
to be
Ray Ferraro?
I think Ray Ferraro's in there. It used to be Doc Emmerich. And
Yeah.
I haven't really paid attention. Like, I don't really pay attention anymore to the calls. They get redundant and they kind of.
Yeah.
But I can hear John Forsland say, "Hey, what do you say?" all night long and never get bored of it.
Every goal he could say that's hockey baby, and we'd love it.
Oh, absolutely. I'd eat
Every
it up.
goal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He could say that for the opposing goals. I'll still eat it up.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about, your broadcasting, but how did you get into that? How did you transition from NHL player? Now, you played your last 2 seasons in Tampa, and then you transitioned to Fox eventually. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, that was it was really interesting. I always tell people, they don't believe me when I tell people sometimes, but it was the end of a season. We missed the playoffs. I was doing the youth hockey stuff, and now the season's over the second week of April, and you have until September to fill some time, and stay in touch with your fans. And I remember Don Sill from Canes Vision came downstairs. Don Sill's now gone. I believe he's still working for the Atlanta Falcons. Don't quote me on that, but Donnie Sill was with Canes Vision for a long time, and he came down and he said, "Shane, we need some content." And whatever I tell people in my office, I say it's the yes office, because anyone could walk in my office and ask, I'll just say, yeah, sure, whatever. But Don walks in, he goes, "We need content." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, what do you mean? This is youth hockey office. What do you want me to do?" And he goes, "No, we want you to go on camera." And I said, "And do what?" He goes, "I don't know." And he goes, "Just talk to people." And I'm like, "You want to just roll around and talk to people?" He's like, "Yeah, we'll make it funny, stuff like that." I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." So there was I believe it was some kind of it wasn't the full Summerfest event. It was just an event at PNC, and there's people on the arena floor. The inflatables were up. And I basically went around and interviewed people about cotton candy. Whether they like pink, whether they like blue, trying to
Blue
get
all
them to
the
figure
way,
out
let's be real.
what it was made of. Like, I was asking questions and people were looking at me. I was trying to talk to kids, get them to say funny stuff. And they throw this up on the website. And they called it, and it was funny because we do a segment on Fox now called "Whatchu Talking About Willis," and that's what they called it that summer. It was "Whatchu Talking About Willis." So
That's
the
the
first
name of
one
this
was
episode.
Yep.
the first one was cotton candy, and he was like, "That was awesome. Let's do it again." I'm like, "What are we gonna do now?" And he goes, "Let's go to the state fair." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Come on." He goes, "We got a camera, a microphone. They'll let us do anything we want." And I said, "All right." So we roll in there. And we'll make some funny pictures. You can still find it on YouTube. I tell people all the time to type in "What You Talking About the Fair," and it will come up. And I start going around these signs. He cuts it and edits it perfectly. And then I start talking to people about the food, because the biggest thing at the fair is the food. And I'm standing there talking to this guy. And I'm like, "What are you eating today?" And he's like, "I got this deep fried peanut butter and jelly sandwich." And I'm like, "Wow, that sounds great." I said, "How is it?" He goes, "Well, I haven't tried it yet." And he goes, I'm like, "Well, give it a shot." And I said, "Our fans want to know how good it is." So he takes a bite of it, And I put the mic back on. I'm like, so how is it? He goes, man, it's really good. And as he said it's really good, I use my other hand. I take it out of his hand and just mow it down. Like I take a huge bite off it.
Oh,
And then
my
I
God.
hand it back to him. And Don holding the camera didn't know I was going to do it. And I mean, he just about fell over. And he's like, keep going, keep going. And the guy just looks at me. I'm like, that was awesome. Thanks, buddy. And then, we cut it. And I look at the guy. I'm like, hey, I'll buy another one. Don't worry about it. And he goes, no, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fair. I'm like, okay. The rest of the day, I went around and ate people's food. I took I took a turkey leg out of a kid's hand and took a bite out of it and handed it back to him. I took a bite off a lady's pita. Like the whole video is just hilarious. And everyone's like, how'd you not get sick? I'm like, I don't know. I be at the state fair all the time. I just didn't get sick. And so that was the whole summer. And so we get to the hockey season. I go back to my office. My time on content's over. And that's when Chantel McCabe was our host. And it was going along. And then Mike Sundheim came to me and he said, hey, you ever thought about doing some TV stuff? I'm like, no. And he goes, well, Fox is talking, we have Chantel at the desk and they want to add something. They just feel like her being there by herself is kind of, not effective enough as having a, co-anchor, if you want, or an analyst with her. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, so you can do it? I'm like, sure. And so all of a sudden I just get this opportunity from Fox. And I went up there and sat down with Chantel. And, first couple of times, I didn't realize I was going to be as nervous as I was. And they're like, all right, we're coming on. And I was like freaking out. I'm like, oh, here we go. And, they give you this timing sheet of your topics. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, you only give me 30 seconds for this topic. And so I talk. And then she's looking at me. And the guy is in my ear going, you still got some time if you want anything. And I'm like, well, I'm done now. Give me the next question. Like, so it took a little bit to get involved with it. And then, yeah, Chantel moved on. She's now at the Golf Channel doing great things. Michelle McMahon came in. I had some great chemistry getting things going. She's great. She loves having fun on the show and did a great job. And then she moved back to the Big Ten Network. And then obviously the big rig, Mike Maniscalco, stepped in. And, he and I these past few years have been, the dynamic duo at the desk, if you will, and just had some great chemistry. Yeah, I mean, you could play the song. I don't know. I'm sure. I guess he'd be Batman. I'd be Robin. That's just our sign.
I could see it.
There's so many different ways we could go with the duos that we are, but I love Mike. I think he's an outstanding host, and what he does, he brings so much energy and enthusiasm, and just the aspect that he brings to each and every game from the behind the scenes, and that's his role. People want to know what these guys are doing in the locker room, what the coaches are thinking, and Mike does a great job of bringing that story to our fans.
He really does. And your guys' broadcast is also somewhat on the radio. Now, of course, segments that you guys are usually, you or Mike are in, they usually get replaced by the radio host. But for the most part, John and Tripp's call get on there. How was that, that transition to losing Chuck and having to go with John and Tripp's call?
Well, I think it was know much about it. We just knew it was a business decision, and the changing of the times really in different areas around the league of what teams were doing. It was tough for me because I was able to play and have Chuck Caton call some of my goals, and he was one of the best on the radio. Certainly still is one of the best. If he had the opportunity to get back on the radio with any team, he'd be just as good as ever. It always amazed me, Chuck's calls of everything that he remembered from the Hartford Whalers days of Tuesday, March the 3rd in 1981, when this guy was going down the wing, and I'm just like, he would pull this stuff out, and I'm like, how does he remember streaming a game? But again, that's how Caton was. So it was difficult for me and a lot of the alumni players because Chuck was so great for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I think it was just a seamless transition for the Hurricanes to position it and get those things rolling. Again, not much say in it from us or anything to do with us. They put on, Mike and I, if they want on the radio, like you said, pieces they do, but that's really all we have in it. But always tough to see a great announcer, a great person, and obviously a great friend whenever they leave your organization in those roles or as a trade for a player as well.
You've really have an illustrious career. You talked about Chuck calling your goals. You played in several teams outside of the NHL. Now you've only played in Carolina and Tampa in the NHL, but you've played in several teams outside of it. What would you say was your favorite other than NHL team to play for?
It's also known as a suitcase, by the way, Omar. We used to call guys suitcases who played for a lot of teams. When they came into our ranks, we'd chirp them. If they kept getting traded, we just call them a suitcase. So I don't know. I don't know
Oh,
if I was traded a
I
lot.
don't know if you're a suitcase. You didn't get
No,
traded.
I wasn't traded. Tampa just kept moving their silly farm team back and forth from different cities.
Yeah, I mean that's different business.
I would probably have to say the year I spent over in Europe. I spent the majority of the season in Davos, Switzerland, a beautiful ski village on top of a mountain. Couldn't get any better than that. And then I finished the year in Sweden. But to see that hockey over there and really see how much skill and those players have in those leagues, and then just to see the culture and live in those cities was amazing. My wife and I still look back on pictures that we have and think about what a beautiful place it was in Davos in Switzerland. My daughter was 1 at the time, being over there to look back on pictures of her in the snow and all those things. It was quite an experience to play not only on that team but to get that experience in those countries.
You engage in other winter sports?
I used to ski. My brother, my dad, and I used to hit the slopes in Lake Louise and Banff in the wintertime whenever there was an off time from my hockey and my brother wasn't out in the woods hunting, so we'd race up to the ski hills and we'd ski together. So I did a little bit of that in Switzerland. I tried to teach my wife, who is from North Carolina, and it didn't go so well. She wondered why we were getting on a ski lift to go up to the bunny hill, and I said, well, this isn't the Appalachian Mountains, this is the Swiss Alps, and she started freaking out. So that lasted one time, and she got into cross country skiing. She thought that was great exercise, and over there they had miles and miles of groomed trails, so
Yeah.
she got interested in that. So I did a little bit of skiing. I've done a little bit of curling on the side with my brother and my grandfather back in the day. But that's about it. I played a little bit of volleyball in high school. That's a winter sport up in Canada.
Sure.
In the gym.
Yeah, indoors, I guess. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's gotta be hard on to hit on that ground unless there's like sand indoors.
No sand. You play on the gym floor.
Ugh.
Just like college volleyball. That's what we did. Although
yes, right,
in the
yeah.
summertime we took it to the beaches, and I was telling someone the other day that, I was pretty solid beach volleyball player too.
Yeah, maybe in another lifetime, Olympics.
The Olympics. Karch Karai.
Oh.
I was reaching back. That really aged myself right there.
We're gonna pretend we didn't hear that. How about that?
Edit that
No
out
idea what
too.
you're
Can you edit
talking
that out?
about.
Shane, the NHL right now is at a complete standstill. And there's a lot of questions about how it should return, if it's going to return, and what it would look like when it does return. What would you say is say we return to somewhat normal July 1st? How would you think, or how would you like the league to return?
Yeah, I think, first of all, this sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
not being able to turn on the TV at night and watch a hockey game drives me nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I
a
think it
lot
drives
of us feel
everybody
that way,
nuts.
I think.
Actually, although NBC's doing a good job, they're showing, game sevens from Stanley Cup Finals. I'm wondering why they haven't shown the Canes yet, or if I've just missed it on one night on
haven't
NBC
yet.
Sports. So I'm sure that one's coming up. They were Pittsburgh and Detroit was on tonight, so that's always good to watch those. Sit on the edge of your seat game sevens. But like you said, no one knows what's going to happen. The hard part is, there were a couple rulings just the other day in Toronto and I believe in DC saying they didn't want any major sporting events until June 30th or beyond. So that makes it difficult. I think the time off for these players makes it extremely difficult because being off is one thing and being able to train is another thing. And these players are quarantined. They're on a stay-at-home order just like we all are. And they don't have gyms in their houses. Some of them will have treadmills, some will have bikes, some will have some weights. Some of them have smaller gyms, but some guys really don't have anything. And Sidney Crosby was talking the other day on a podcast how he's doing a lot more running and push-ups and body weight stuff to try and stay as ready as possible. Because you can't go to the gym and you can't train like it's summertime because there's nowhere to go. And I think it's just difficult to see if this was to start up again in July. They need a couple weeks to get ice. Then the question is, do you play the 14 remaining games? Now you're into August and you start the playoffs. The big concern for the NHL is not losing games next year. Taking a hit one year, and everyone's taking a financial hit across the world. Every business is. But from the NHL standpoint is they mold this into a 2-year problem. And I think that's one thing they're really going to look at over these next few months is, maybe we should just cancel this and start normally, in September with training camp in October and keep everything normal for next year. Obviously, no one wants to just let it go because there's a lot of money on the table. Could you get 14 games in and the playoffs? Or do you just start the playoffs? But a lot of players are saying they don't want to do that. They don't want to just jump into the playoffs. One, they want to get kind of back up to speed, I think, and a lot of players feel that's really not fair. There's some great races going on in the East and the West for teams to get into the playoffs. So many tough decisions, so many unknowns out there, and really nobody knows. I think we watch the news every day hoping for an amazing breakthrough on when this terrible pandemic will end. But no one can really tell right now, and there's no really light at the end of the tunnel, if you would, to really predict these things.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, especially now that it's official, really, that the off-season events have been pushed to the right, at least. What would you say is a proper course? To completely cancel this and maybe take a small hit in the upcoming season, or would you suggest that perhaps a melding of 2 seasons into one could be a solution? But how would that look in contract-wise?
Yeah, those are some of the other issues that come into play, right? Because really, June 30th is the end of contracts. Players are supposed to become free agents. What's the legalities of those contracts? How can you re-sign somebody or make a pitch at a free agent? All those things are difficult, and that's why I think when it comes down to it and we get that far along, it may just be easier for them to cancel everything and say, set the draft. Maybe free agency will open August 1st. If we can have the draft in July and then roll from there. Every day this goes on longer and every day I see something saying, hey, maybe July 1st. It's very hard for me to see them pulling off 14 games and an amazing playoff series to make the rest of this year happen.
Shane, these are tough times and really a lot of questions by the players, by the fans, by everyone. Thank you for taking the time really to kind of give your, I don't want to say 2 cents because it's a little bit more valuable than that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll give you 3 cents.
Oh,
Small, maybe a nickel?
No, I think there's a dollar. There's a dollar amount on that one, Shane.
A silver dollar? But it was great, guys. I
Gold
appreciate you
dollar.
having me on. It's always great to get on and talk about hockey. I remember, like I said, yesterday I was on a Zoom call with a bunch of hockey guys, and someone was asking, they're like, are you going to cut this off at an hour? And everyone's like, no, don't do it. Like, we don't have anything to do the rest of the day. Let's keep talking hockey. And just when you get into a room or you can get on a podcast, and I think that's one of the things that you see on TV right now is trying to remain positive. And I think all the Hurricanes fans are. I think the guys are doing a good job on social media and having some fun with it. And I got a great link sent to me the other day from the Women's Trailblazers League where they edited together. Did you see that video, Amanda?
I have not. I'm surprised that I haven't.
You got to find it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they put it on Facebook or I can't remember the
One of
link
my
they sent it
favorites.
to me, but they did a great job cutting a video together where one person starts bobbling a roll of toilet paper, which we're all in need of, and it was basically passing it on. So they would shoot it or hit it out of the screen, and all of a sudden it would be on the stick of another female player with the Trailblazers or with the Hurricanes. So it was a great video that the ladies
That's
did, and they
great.
said, this is something we're trying to do to continue to have fun and keep our spirits up. And I think that's what it's all about right now. I think it's very difficult times, and a lot of people are struggling with this, but the sun's going to come up again tomorrow, and we can talk a little bit about hockey, look at some highlights, and just hope and pray that this ends sooner than later and we get everything back on track, not only in the hockey world, but across the entire world in all aspects.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot to take advantage of this time. Yeah, we're all quarantined. Yeah, it's not fun. But like you said, you may watch some highlights, work on some skills. The recommendations and tips you gave to the kids earlier in the episode were excellent. So do your homework. I'm personally doing homework. I'm getting ready to graduate college here in several weeks. So I'm really excited about that. But
And just
yeah,
for the kids to remember too, if this thing can be done and over with, myself and Emil Hartman and Alyssa, we're still gonna fire up the Carolina Hurricanes summer camps at the end of July. So the registrations are open right now. If parents are
And those are
looking
all
and thinking
girls
about
one
the end of the
too.
summer, we do, of course, bringing in Alyssa. We're gonna throw in an all-girls session in there that she's gonna take charge of and make sure these young girls have a great time and continue to build their skills. So looking forward to an exciting, maybe not start of the summer, but hopefully end of the summer, things start rolling again for us in the youth hockey world.
Shane, one more time for the listeners, let them know where they can go for registration and let them know what they can expect.
All right, so everyone can go to canesyouthhockey.com. You can find our first goal program there for anyone who's interested in introducing themselves to the sport. You can find our summer camps there. You can find our Carolina Hurricanes Elite Camp for our high-end AA and AAA players. We hope to have that by the end of June as well. Also, that's a great website for any of the things that we do from the female side. Alyssa posts all her camps and clinics on there. And Emil Hartman also does a great job posting our adult camps that we've been hosting the past few years at PNC Arena. We've had a great following of adult men and women coming out, working on their skills with us too. So canesyouthhockey.com is where you can find everything that we're going to do, not only at PNC Arena, but in the local rinks with our youth and with our adults as well.
Shane,
Very
thank
exciting.
you so much for coming on Revolution Rampage, talking to us and giving us a lot of information to work with. I'm pretty sure Amanda's got about 3 or 4 pages of notes
Oh yeah.
written down. And
perfect.
hopefully all our listeners do as well, especially those with kids and those who are looking for ways to get them out of the house maybe and maybe work on some skills in the garage or in the yard or whatnot. So this has been Revolution Rampage. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. At Revolution R for Twitter and at Revolution Rampage for Instagram and / Revolution R for Facebook. We're also at Patreon. We've got some cool stickers. We'll send some to you, Shane. We got a Geeky Squad sticker. We got a Doug Hug sticker. In a cool Revolution Rampage holographic sticker. I think I'm going to send those out to you. And for those who are listening, they want to get a sticker, they're all on our Patreon for really good prices, kind of help support us and what we do here and getting amazing people like Shane to come on.
Well, thank you guys. Look forward to doing it again when things get rolling. Let's get back on and have a fun, exciting one. Getting ready to kick these Hurricanes games back off once again.
Absolutely. We cannot
Shane.
wait. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good
Bye.
night.